you want to go after small markets. If you're a startup, you want to get to monopoly. You're starting a new company, you want to get to monopoly. Monopoly is you have a large share of a market. How do you get to a large share of a market? You start with a really small market and you take over that whole market, and then over time you find ways to expand that market in concentric circles. And the thing that's always a big mistake is going after a giant market on day one, because that's typically evidence that that you somehow haven't defined the categories correctly, it normally means that there's going to be too much competition in one way or another. And so I think almost all the successful companies in Silicon Valley had some model of starting with small markets and expanding. And if you take Amazon, you start with just a bookstore. We have all the books in the world, so it's a better bookstore than anybody else has in the world when it starts in the 90s. It's online. There's things you can do you can't do before, and then you gradually expand into all sorts of different forms of e-commerce and other things beyond that. eBay. You start with Pez dispensers. You move on to Beanie Babies, and eventually it's all these different auctions for all these sorts of different goods. And what's very counterintuitive about many of these companies is they often start with markets that are so small that people don't think that they're valuable at all when you get started. The PayPal version of this was we started with power sellers on eBay, which was about 20,000 people. When we first saw this happening in December of '99, January 2000, right after we launched, there was a sense that these were all, it was such a small market, it was terrible, we thought these were terrible customers to have, it's just people selling junk on the internet, why in the world do we want to be going after this market? But there was a way to get a product that was much better for everybody in that market. You could, and we got to something like 25, 30% market penetration in 2 or 3 months, and you got some lock-in, you got brand recognition, and you're able to build the business from there.